Yay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inner Workings of the Not So Genius Mind. I'm your host, Amanda McCombs, the Not So Genius, and I'm your Mrs. Daybreak this year. And I'm here with Chelsi Rasmussen. She is such a dear friend. We've only known each other maybe like a year and a half now that I think about it, but it's been life-changing. She's a fellow Sash sister, life coach, and mom of, was it 4? No way. 4. Oh my God. Chelsi Rasmussen, our Mrs. Utah America. How are you?
Oh, Amanda, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get to chat with you today.
Yay, I'm excited to have you. Ah, um, maybe I'm gonna spring this on you a little bit. So
Good.
I think the
Bring it.
first time we met was at the Queen's party at Bailey's house.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Yes.
that it?
Yes, it was that Christmas favorite things party that was the I remember going. I remember being so nervous
Me too.
going to that event, and I remember saying a prayer to myself in the car and be like, "Okay, heavenly team, this is also new to me. And, like, I need to know for sure, like, if this is like, I need another verification that I am on the right path." And I remember arriving and being so nervous and, starting to get to know all the Sash sisters. And I remember leaving there just like with this overwhelming feeling of yes, yes, this is exactly where I need to be. And meeting you was such a beautiful part of that and getting to know more of your story. It was, yeah, so powerful.
Oh my goodness. Well, you and I both hadn't done a pageant before, right?
Right, right. So
Yeah.
we were both wide-eyed and like
Yeah.
soaking up all the information. Yes.
Like everyone is so pretty and nice, and they want to be my friend. It's
Yes.
weird. It's mind blowing. I just remember sitting down next to you and I was chatting with Clarissa. Um, and I remember sitting next to you and we were chit-chatting forever and ever and ever. And we were just like pouring our hearts out to each other. And everybody was like getting up and leaving. And you and I are still like,
Mhm.
I knew you were going to win. From that moment, I was like, that crown is going to be way too heavy on my head, but this girl's
Oh,
got it.
oh, that's really kind of you to say.
Oh, like,
I think it's hard to see that in ourselves.
yeah. Well, and there was no way because my mom had just passed that August.
Right.
I had so much that I was still going through.
Oh my goodness,
I mean,
right?
all
I
of us
yeah.
do.
Yes.
All of us do. Like you have had your own things going on, even when you went on to nationals, which it was so fun to see you up on that stage. But like
Oh. But
everyone
no,
has stuff going on.
it was wonderful that you came and supported us. Like the Sash Sisterhood in the Utah, the Utah program is so real.
Yeah.
And there were so many people at nationals who were so jealous of not only our relationship with our directors, but the amount of support that we had show up for Utah was
Right?
amazing. And
And
so it was beautiful that you were a part of that.
oh, thank you. I think we all just wanted to be there and like we trauma bonded, kind of, right?
We did. We totally did.
We're all winners and we're like all there supporting each other. And I lost so hard. I was like, I know I don't got it. I'm just gonna show up and I'm gonna do it and I'll do better next year and it'll be less scary.
Okay, but you nailed that on what you said just nailed it on the head. You showed up anyways,
Yeah.
right? And choosing, even though it was so hard and it was so scary, you're choosing to do it again, which means like like that means so much about you, Amanda,
Oh,
of just you're like, yes, of course I'm doing it again. And it's like
I made up.
you're just you're an inspiration to so many.
Oh, well, we can say the same about you. Everyone listening is probably like, ew, these girls are gross. But really, this is like, I think the whole time we're getting ready, we're sharing ideas, like nothing's really kept hidden a secret. We're not trying to undercut each other. Everyone's trying to support each other. Um, and that's a community that I think a lot of us that are in it have always needed
Right.
and wanted.
Yep. Yes. I that has been part of my healing journey of um I kind of left a big community that I had growing up, and that was a big part of a part of my world in every facet. And as I left that community, it was really lonely. And, as I was trying to figure out what's next and, to have this pageant fall into my lap, how beautiful, like, and I wasn't even realizing that it would heal that part of feeling like a lack of community and how amazing it has been to have this sisterhood, like you said, that is not only so supportive, but inclusive
Mhm.
of, like the energy is all about what do you need? How can we support you? Rather than, you know, what I had all the preconceived notions going into the pageant world, it just was a completely different experience. And so it's just been so beautiful and healing.
That is kind of exactly what I was going to say.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
this whole world that you don't, when you grow up not really having other women that have your back, and then you find that community later in life, like whatever point of your life you're in, there's ladies of all ages in this pageant, and
Right.
we're
Right.
all able to still show up for each other. And I think that's so cool. There's this like we all clearly needed that community.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
glad.
everybody, right, needs to find their community where they feel that they belong and that they are seen and heard. And I know our society really needs to be better about that. I think, especially after COVID, we had this huge awakening of how much we need each other. And yeah, just it's crazy that finding community through pageantry. I never knew that was something that was going to come from this, which was so beautiful.
We lost our villages
Hmm.
and we had to figure out how to get them again.
Right, right.
Or like, and they needed to change. And I think a lot of us think about all the picture perfect things that we see on social media and what life should be like. And you don't realize how hard and how difficult all this crap is that we have to go through to get up there. Did you think so? Your original title was You Were Eagle Mountain, right?
Mhm. Correct. Yes.
Um, did you think claiming that title helped you kind of solidify who you were more as a person?
Mm. I know that, and it wasn't just taking on the title of Mrs. Eagle Mountain. It was getting my brain on board with shifting to like getting in a place where I'd be comfortable receiving the title as Mrs. Utah. And, what I teach my coaching clients is, okay, you have this goal. What and then trying to get them to, okay, what does it feel like when you've obtained this goal, and feel that energy now and live your life as if you've already obtained that goal. So that not only helps elevate your energy, but helps get your mind on board with, okay, like I'm going to act as if I'm Mrs. Utah now. And I also utilize this, after coming home from Mrs. America, it was another aha moment of like, wait a second, even though I didn't receive that title, there's no reason why I can't do the things that I wanted to do as Mrs. America, as Mrs. Utah, right? I can still take that same energy and implement it now, right? I didn't need that title to do the things that I wanted to do. I can still do that as Mrs. Utah. And I that's the same as local title holders, right? Like if, elevating your energy to stand as if you were Mrs. Utah or Mrs. America or whatever it is, whatever the goal is, living that now and sitting in that energy now helps just helps amplify and helps you get closer to obtaining those goals and being aligned, right? Like I think the biggest thing that we miss when we are setting goals is the energy
Mhm.
and the energy and being congruent and aligned with what you are trying to accomplish. And I know, beliefs that we have oftentimes get in the way of receiving that and standing as if we had already obtained that goal. But mindset is everything. And so if it takes tricking our mind to help make that shift. So when you asked, how, if that was hard to receive that title of Mrs. Eagle Mountain, I think I was so excited and humbled to be able to represent not only my community, um, but bigger than that, of being a voice and an advocate for myself, not only myself, but for so many others who felt like they didn't have a platform or space to speak up about these hard things that need to shift and change in Utah. And for the listeners, so my platform was going from survivor to thriver. So it was all around sexual abuse prevention and awareness and sexual assault prevention and awareness. And as scary as that was, um, I think as women and maybe as humans, it's so much easier to stand up for other people than
Mhm.
it is ourselves. And so when I'm talking to victims or survivors of abuse and they're saying, "Well, I don't know how I can speak up about this or report this or stand up to this." And I have to ask them, like, if you knew by standing up and reporting would prevent it from happening to someone else,
Video. Yeah.
would you? And they're like, "Oh, well, yeah." It's like, okay, so why is standing up for yourself any different?
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to start there. We have to start with standing up for others. And, through my journey and, it started with standing up for others and then it morphed into becoming the person that I always needed, right? The person that I needed to protect and stand up for myself and my little child self and my teenage self and my young adult self and right? Like all the different parts of ourselves that were, taken advantage of in one way or another.
So we talk a lot about when you're going from just surviving to being able to thrive, right? You want to not be in like lizard brain. At our school,
Trauma brain, yes,
we
yes.
used to call it wizard versus lizard brain,
Mhm.
as
Ooh, I
then
like
you can
that.
like make some magic, right? You can
Yes.
think a little deeper and more complex. And anyway, there was
Yes.
there was somewhere that I was going to go with that, but I think a big part of that is being able to like find your voice and know that you can speak up for other people that don't have a voice.
Yes.
And even do
And
that without having all of this pageant stuff, but there's something about this whole process that kind of helped me shift my brain to be a better advocate, if that makes sense.
mm,
It
it
opened
it
up
it
more
tot
opportunity.
yeah, yeah, it totally makes sense. And it's hard because I mean, I was just talking with someone at the gym this morning about about this. They had a child who um, was a victim, and just the layers that that continue to they continue to get re-triggered, and it's hard because I don't know if we ever completely heal. I think oh, I've healed this, I've done this, I think that's kind of been, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Sensationalized, especially on, and it's talked about a lot, and trauma's thrown around a bunch. And I'm like, some things I'm like, oh, do we really understand what that word means? Um, but the goal is to be able to heal enough layers so that you are not triggered from day to day. And that once and if you get triggered, you have the skills, you know how to pull yourself out of that and get and operate from a wizard brain rather than a lizard brain. I love that analogy. But I'm still doing my work, and even though like I've labeled myself as, yes, I feel like I'm thriving, there are still times and days that are still very hard. But it's important that we give ourselves permission to not only like hold space for those times when we get triggered and dealing and things still are hard, and we are able to help ourselves out of it. I think learning the skills and getting to a place where you are able to function function from day to day. I think that's how I see going from survivor to thriver, is being able to help yourself and not rely heavily on resources and everyone around you to pull you out and keep you afloat, right? Um yeah, it's a journey for sure.
It really is. I think of it kind of like when you're doing fire drills with kids
Mhm.
and there isn't actually an emergency, but like the more you put those things into practice, the easier it is going to be to do it. And
Absolutely. Yes. And it's been a learning curve, and teaching my husband, like knowing what to do, what I need when I am triggered, when I am in this space of dealing with heavy things. Giving our loved ones the tools and the language to help when needed
yeah.
is right. It takes a village, and I know I could not have done it without my village.
Right. Geez, for real. Um, and your husband is so incredible. He is so sweet. I loved watching him at your Barbie party.
He
He was totally dressed up. It was so
Yes.
cute. He was your Ken.
Yes, and, something I haven't really shared and talked about is the growth journey that I didn't even know this would who knew that a pageant would not obviously be a growth journey for me, but wow, the growth journey that has happened in my relationship, as there were so many different things that we have had to overcome and heal as a couple, and still are. We're still, we are not perfect, but it's been amazing to see how a pageant journey would confront us with different things that we needed to heal in our relationship, and be able to allow space and grace for each other of showing up authentically, because as I mentioned earlier, we both left our community of origin that we grew up in, and it was very traumatizing for us leaving that community, and then reorganizing and redeveloping, okay, who are we as not only individuals but as a family outside this community, outside this organization. Um and it was like, it's so hard. Anybody who's And when I say community, I'm religion. So anybody who has done that sort of reform in their life of like foundationally re-examining everything
Yeah.
is really, really hard. And it was so beautiful that this pageant came into my life when it did, because it provided so many opportunities for my relationship to, just I don't know, it provided opportunities for conversations around things that we didn't really talk about or learn about each other before. And, I would be lying if I say it didn't push us to our limits. But it's so beautiful to look back at the journey. I think I'm going to write a book about it eventually, honestly, because there is social media just shows a snippet of and the highlights, right?
Yeah.
And I will say this last year as Mrs. Utah, it's been the best year of my life, and it's also been the hardest.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of things behind the scenes that, like, hardly anybody knows about, that I'm like, "Okay, eventually I'm going to have to tell this whole story,"
Yeah.
because I don't want people to think that it was all rainbows, and, and it took a lot of work, and a lot of work on both of our part, in my relationship and marriage, of right? Re-examining and holding space for
Yeah.
each other to grow and develop, and reclaim our own, like, who we are as a person,
Yeah.
and allow that individuality for each other without the need to change, I guess. And I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
Like you kind of have to figure out, like, your shelf broke, right?
yes,
My shelf
yes.
broke. I went through all this. My husband and I left. Like, I left when I was a teen and he was older and like was married in the temple and all that stuff. And even though it had been years since either one of us had been raised in it or even gone to church, really, just because we were raised in it and it was part of our culture for
Mhm.
so long. And it was
Yes.
well, and it was like every Sunday, that's what you were learning. You really have to step back and figure out if you want any of that.
Yeah, well, and just, I think the biggest thing is restoring trust in yourself. And
Oh, yeah.
what was big for me is separating. It was a big aha for me to separate religion from spirituality,
Mhm.
and recognizing, like, oh, I am a very spiritual person, and I don't necessarily, for me, and I get this isn't way for everyone, and this is what's so beautiful, is we everybody gets their own path. This is what I believe. Everyone has their own path, but it's important for everyone to feel connected to something higher than us, whether that's a higher power, whether that's God, whether that's, the universe, whatever that is. It is so crucial that we feel connected. And once I was able to separate and realize, oh, I can still be a very spiritual person, and it doesn't need to be tied to this organization. That was so freeing for me and for my family, to really trust and lean into what felt right for us and where our values, lay. I think that was another big fear of, like, oh, leaving this organized religion, like, how do we had so many people like, well, how are you going to teach your kids, like, what's right and wrong and what values are and what, and
Part
there was a moment in my brain that was like, oh, like, that it felt scary, and confronted with that of, like, oh, how am I going to do this? But then quickly realizing, I graduated in social work, and took, within that, like, all these marriage and family classes and child development, and it was like, oh, wait, no, I am very equipped to be able to teach my kids values and what's right and wrong and what we feel is right for our family, was a huge freedom and restoring trust back in myself of like, yes, I am equipped. We can do this. Um, and how beautiful that it is. It like, if anything, it gave me back more power because I feel like before, and I'm not saying this is like for everyone, but for me, I felt like I relied a lot on the religion to teach my kids and realizing, oh, wait, I'm taking back this power and I really get to teach my kids what we value as a family. And um, yeah. Again, restoring that trust is huge and was everything. And on this journey, this pageant journey, I was thinking, oh, this pageant journey is going to help me heal feeling like I have a voice. But what I didn't realize, and I was thinking like feeling like I had a voice to advocate for abuse prevention. But looking back now, it's like, oh, no, 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 no. This wasn't just for abuse prevention. This was healing myself and being able to speak up in relationships of like speaking up for my boundaries, advocating for my relationship with my children, setting boundaries in my marriage. Um, it trickled down to all aspects of my life, realizing, oh, I felt like I didn't have a voice in so many different places in my life.
Yeah.
And stepping into that role just really helped restore that strength and realizing, oh no, I am worthy. I am worth standing up for.
Yeah.
And it's been fun to see it trickle down to my kids. My oldest daughter, I have 3 daughters and then my youngest is a son. And this trickle down effect of seeing how it's impacted them, being able to see mom
Mhm.
do hard things and the things that they've pushed themselves to do because they know, hey, mom's done hard things, I can do hard things. It's been so cool.
Well,
It's like
it
that's been the gift.
it makes you a really cool example. Like you're practicing what you're preaching. You're
Mm,
not just like sitting on the sidelines and being like, okay, you go do the thing. You're
mhm.
doing the thing. And
Doing the thing.
you went in, so state title, you won. I was sandwiched right in between you and Charlotte. You have a first runner up in you. Uh, and then you went on, and I can imagine being on this, like I was on a high from being on the pageant. I didn't even win. I loved being a part of it.
Oh,
And
the energy around that was, yes, the energy around state and all the women participating is just so, it's hard to describe. It is hard to describe unless you're in it.
but what about the hangover? How bad was that?
Oh, yes. It was right because we are pushing ourselves in every facet, right? I tell everybody, um, hey, if you're craving a self-growth journey, a pageant is a great way for that because you're not only pushing yourself physically, you're not only pushing yourself socially and mentally and spiritually. Like you're pushing yourself in every facet. And it was crazy to win state and then having to pick up and turn around and go right on to nationals.
Yeah.
And that was a lot. But also what a crazy opportunity. It is funny because I didn't even know when I joined the Mrs. Utah organization, I had no idea that like the winner goes on to nationals. And I don't know how I missed that memo. I don't know if I was tuning out to that like during like a workshop where that was talked about or cuz it was like only Yeah,
It
it
went
didn't
over my
click in my
head
brain.
too.
It did not click in my brain. That Mrs. Utah goes on to compete at Mrs. America. And so that was a whirlwind to like get on board with, of like, okay, we're doing this. Let's go.
Buckle up.
And it was a amazing experience to be able to rub shoulders with such powerful women across America, where a lot of them are doctors and teachers. There was just it was so diverse, but all of these women had a cause and something that they felt so passionate to stand up for. And I mean, life changing week, right? To be able to not only, I mean, so fun to have the opportunity to get red carpet ready, hair and makeup done every day, fun wardrobe, all the fun part
Full
of it.
glam all week.
Yes, but um yeah, it was definitely a bucket list opportunity for sure. For sure.
I kind of went just to kind of be like, I didn't realize for some reason when I signed up, my head was just only thinking about Mrs. Utah, and I didn't even really think about nationals at all.
Right? I know. So, yeah. I was right there with you. Didn't realize. Didn't
And
realize.
I'm gonna go and make sure I really want to do this again because right afterwards, I told Amanda Brady, I was like, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna do pageants full time.
Perfect.
It's like, slow down, slow down, wait a minute. Let's think about this. Uh, but yeah, it was really fun to watch, and I could tell it's like it's hard. It's hard work. Um, and you are pushing yourself to the max.
Oh yeah. It yes, it physically demanding, but mentally. I don't think people understand the mental game of doing pageants, of really having to get good at staying in your like not only connected to yourself. I like to say inward and upward, like you staying connected to yourself and heaven. And because once you start looking side to side, you get in your own, in that comparison game, you get in your own head, and it's like it's over. It's over. Um, and it pushes you, and you have to get really, really good of staying in your own lane and not comparing. And I think as a society, we struggle with that. And so, yeah, as I'm sitting here talking, it's really hitting home for me how I've had to get good at that this last year and strengthen that muscle of letting go of the comparison game and giving myself permission to just show up as me, and not some idea of how I think I should be showing up. And I'm still learning that. In fact, this this last weekend, we did a photo shoot Saturday morning, and I without going into too much detail, something happened, and Saturday night I came home and had a panic attack, and it was all around because I changed something, or I gave up a little bit of my power to acquiesce to what someone else was expecting, and I didn't feel congruent with
Oh,
like I didn't feel congruent or authentic with how I showed up. And it was like, okay, I get to learn this lesson again of really getting clear and tapping into what feels right for me and not acquiescing to what someone else feels is right for me.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a it's an ongoing practice. I don't know if we ever get to master. I would love to be able to master that, but it's an ongoing practice for sure.
Do you think that's like the difference between imposter syndrome? Like, will that, if you're showing up authentically, do you think that will help negate the imposter syndrome that a lot of us feel? Because I just kind of faked it till I made it. And I still am like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna do my best. And I'm figuring out who I am.
Yeah. I agree in faking it till you make it because
I
I've been there. Um,
just feel like I
but
have imposter syndrome. Like,
but also I think what's important is to give ourselves space and permission and time. I think this is key. We don't give ourselves enough time, quiet time to really connect with ourselves and really get clear on what we value. A lot of times we give up our power to what other people value.
mhm.
And like for instance, so I'm gonna just, just call it as it is because that's how I do.
Yeah.
So the photo shoot, I the dresses that I were wearing, they were plunging neckline. And sometimes in the pageant world, and I've heard, through like just like, oh, like I would never win because I don't have the chest that, they're looking for. And so we laugh in the pageant world of like, oh, like the pads that you can put in, build a booby workshop. And so I put pads in my dress, and I hadn't done that before. And for this photo shoot, and I got the photos back, and I'm like, oh no, I don't feel good about, like, that's not me. That's not my body. I don't I don't feel congruent with that. Like, and like this judgment, and what caused the panic attack, what I'm realizing is the judgment I had on myself, judging myself for like, how dare you? Like
Oof.
this is what was going on in my mind. How dare you let other people's opinions and what they think you should look like impact how you showed up?
Oof. Oh,
And it was yeah, like
wow.
this is hard for me to admit and say, is because like right? Like I'm still learning and healing different layers of myself of like, okay, I get to also practice, as I zoom out, I'm like, oh, well, I was in the energy, like I was surrounded by, in the pageant world, lots of photo shoots going on, lots of pageant ladies around, all the my hair and makeup team. And I was in that world and in that energy. And so what I learned about myself is I need to get good at taking a step back for a second, connecting with myself, separating myself, maybe even energetically for a moment, checking in with myself. Okay, what feels right for me?
Mhm.
And I think this relates to every aspect in our lives, right? Whenever we're making, I mean, that was a small decision, but whenever we're making decisions of getting good at separating ourselves, from other people and really getting clear, what is my heart saying? What is my gut saying? And what is my head saying? Because the you can get three different messages, gut, I say in like that's our intuition, that's our inner knowing. Sometimes, heart, gut, and mind all be, it will be giving us three different answers. But strengthening that muscle to really get good of tapping inward of how do I feel good about this? What do I think and feel about this? And is this congruent with my values? Something that I work with my coaching clients about is there's a worksheet you can Google, like Brene Brown
Oh, I love
list of values. Yeah. So Brene Brown has a worksheet and has a whole bunch of list of values. And I work with clients to get like be able to narrow down and get clear on their top three values, which is really hard from this worksheet, like 3 to 5. And once you are able to, especially someone who has deconstructed and left a religion, to get clear on the values, on your personal values is huge, because then you can know when you're making a decision, if you are operating out of the values that feel congruent to you, or if you are giving up your power and operating from someone else's values.
yeah. Well, if
That
you're
and
not
that
aligned,
go ahead.
oh, if you're not aligned with your own values, just like that tiniest little tilt,
Oh yeah.
shift everything.
And then yes, and then it feels incongruent. That's where anxiety comes from.
And then you can't
And
figure out how to get back.
and honestly, that's where anxiety and depression comes from a lot of the time, is this feeling incongruent with what feels right for us and giving up our power to all these other sources, people, like organizations, thinking like that's what is expected, that's what's needed, that's what they need. And that has been life-changing for me, honestly, is realizing, oh wow. And to make sure you're not taking advice from people who has different values than you. Like one of my top values, I'll tell you, my top two values is freedom and connection. And where I have loved ones who has a top value of um, financial security.
Uh-huh.
And while that, like that's a great thing and something to be valued, I know that it is a high value for them. And so if I am asking advice from them and they are telling me advice that may, and I've had this experience before, that may contradict my value of freedom,
Mm-hmm.
like it's like, okay, thank you for that advice, but this actually aligns with me better.
Yeah.
Um, Anyways, that's just a little example, but again, I highly encourage everyone, if you have not done it, and it's, it's like, oh yeah, I know what I value, but to really write down on paper exactly like the words that you build your life around is huge. It's life changing. Like, okay, so when I'm making this decision, does this align? Does this align with my value of connection, with authenticity, with freedom? And a lot of times it's like, oh, actually, it doesn't. It doesn't. So that's not for me.
How cool. How powerful is that? And it seems so simple.
It is so simple, but we haven't been taught to take the time to really get to know ourselves in that way.
Oh, it's over there. I'm gonna have to show you. I got this planner and I don't remember exactly what it's called, but all in the front of it, it has you like find your life's purpose and your goals
Mhm.
and your mission statement and all these things.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
and a little, what is it called? Like a dream board,
Yes, vision board. Yes, dream
different
board.
ways to like, because I have all these things happening. I don't have a normal job anymore, and I can't do normal calendaring things on my phone while I'm talking on it while I'm trying to talk to somebody. Like my brain doesn't work like that. So I went old school and got pencil and paper and just having to sit and think about that and sit for a minute is
There is something powerful that comes from pen to paper.
mhm.
Not only in like, so when you're saying creating your dream board, manifesting, to be able to actually write it out. Because you're right. A lot of times we rely on our phones and technology to organize our lives. It's powerful. That's
Yeah.
why I mean, journaling, when you're trying to manifest, being able to journal and write down affirmations and journal out your dreams as if they have already happened is so powerful. And I cannot emphasize that enough. So I love that you got your paper journal. I just
Oh,
got a new one too.
it's just it's so pretty. And I was like, but it's all about manifesting. Like, what is the type of year that I want to have? And then each week it gives you a little breakdown of like, what are different ways that you can work towards meeting those goals. But it's been so overwhelming because
You have a lot going on.
a lot's going on. But what really helped is the What's Your Why workshop.
Oh,
And
good.
like
Yes.
having to sit down and answer who, what, where, when, why, and how, I guess is the other one.
Yes, you're not alone in that. I know as it's hard for so many of us because we just get caught up in the grind of life, and we're just going and doing the things, and a lot of times we don't sit back and actually ask, okay, what's my why behind this? What is actually motivating me? And what does this look like for me? Like, if, what is my ideal best case scenario? A lot of times we don't even give ourselves permission to think about that. And we just like, oh, yeah, this is what I've been told. This is what I need to do. This is what's been expected. This is what's been suggested. Um, yeah. And getting clear on your why is everything.
So huge. Man. Well, I think this is probably a good point to start winding down. I do want to ask, is there any recommendations that you have for anybody that's like looking to make a life shift, like we're talking about? Like, where do you begin? Like, you already know you need to make a change. What's your first step?
First thing is holding space for yourself and giving yourself permission to do things differently. I think it is so scary to take that first step of making a change and creating change and giving yourself permission to change. Um, and utilizing support, right? It takes a village. We can't do things alone. So whether that's hiring a counselor, hiring a coach, um, we can't do things alone. We are meant to have a community. We are village people. We are tribe people from the beginning of time. And there are so many resources available that you just got to utilize. And I think the biggest hang up that people get stuck is you have to know and feel that you are worthy and worth it to stand up for and create change. Like, you are worthy of creating the life that you want and dream. You are worth making these changes and becoming that advocate for yourself and whatever that is. Because we get stuck in our own negative beliefs and patterns and things we've been told or have been taught that are, frankly, they do not serve us and prevent us from creating the life that we want, right? So that would be my first. If you are really struggling and you don't know, like, because I was there. Oh my goodness, not even. I mean, I was there. I was there probably 2 years ago. It was right before the pageant and years leading up to, joining as Mrs. Eagle Mountain, of like feeling so lost and feeling like I didn't have a purpose and feeling like, I felt like there was something I should be doing, but I wasn't clear on what it was. And, I was dealing with trauma and depression and going through PTSD and was really, really struggling. And what helped shift everything was healing the belief that I am worth it.
That's so powerful. Man, I love you. That's
And I love you.
Chelsi, tell us where to find you.
Right now on Instagram, just chat with Chelsi with an I. As this pageant era of my life comes to a close, it will be, I have a couple of ideas where I'm wanting to take things, but I'm passionate about living authentically and showing up authentically and having hard, real conversations. So come over and join me over there and continue having the real conversations and calling things out as they are. I like to do that too.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So yeah, they can find me there.
Thank you so much. Man, okay. I'm trying to remember how I end these things. Usually it's something along the lines of take care of yourself. It's a crazy world out there.
Yeah.
Anything.
Thanks, Amanda, for having me.
I love you so much. You're the best.